Hi, I wanted to take a minute and just share some information. I made a long Facebook post about this, but I figured it would be easier to just do it in video form. So what I was sharing about is in the last few days I have done lots and lots of trainings on autism with a focus on early diagnosis, early intervention, and not even specifically about autism. The focus of the training was autism, but we're talking about any delay. That can be physical, motor delay, that can be obviously language delay, whether that's receptive, which is what they understand, or expressive and how they express language to others. And so it can be all of those things. It can be some type of like occupational thing, like where they're struggling with sensory input or maybe balance, some of that stuff that kind of goes back to some physical skills. Academic skills, if they're just not on track with their peers. And so you don't think about academic skills with little bitty babies, but it's true and it's there. And the longer we wait on any kind of delay, the harder it is for these kiddos to catch up. And so in talking with parents, a lot of parents will say things like, well, I really didn't think it was that big of a deal, or I've been wondering about it for a while, but I just wasn't sure, so I waited and waited. Well, if you have a child that is 3 to 6 months behind on something, and then you wait another 3 to 6 months to see if they catch up, a lot of times they will get further and further behind. Very rarely does a child get caught up on their own. And so it makes it very, very difficult when you've got a child that starts off at 3 to 6 months behind, and then you wait another 3 to 6 months and finally say, we need to do something about this. This is not quite where they need to be. Then you get put on a wait list for services, which happens very, very often. Either just a wait list for services or a wait list for diagnosis or evaluation. So even if you're not worried about autism, even if autism or any of these other bigger disorders are not on your radar, if it's just a speech delay or just a motor delay or just a sensory delay, whatever delay it is, some other type of physical delay, anything that puts them a little bit behind peer level, you can easily stretch that delay out into they're 12 months behind, they're 18 months behind if you wait. And you think I'm just waiting 3 or 4 months, it's not a big deal. But when children, very, very young children, are developing millions of brain, like neural pathways in their brain every few seconds, that's huge. From up to 24 months of age, there are millions of brain pathways being formed every few seconds. Then it kind of tapers off a little bit at 24 months. It's still a lot higher than for an adult, but it tapers off a little bit at 24 months, and then it continues to decrease as the child ages. So we think, 24 months, if a child's not talking, okay, then we need to get them evaluated. No, it needs to happen way before that. When you wait to the 24-month mark and the child only has a few words, that's a significant delay at that point. And then the other issue you have is if you have to wait further for services at that point. A lot of times in my area, you can wait 6 months to a year, usually around a year, for an evaluation. You might get a pediatrician to just say, yeah, we're delayed on speech, so let's go ahead and get speech started. But you're at least going to usually wait 3 to 6 months for speech therapy. And you want a pediatric therapist, usually with one that little. And so that's some of the other issues there. People worry about insurance paying for it. There's some things that you can do for that, and that's something you can reach out to me about. But it's so, so critical that while these young children are developing all these brain pathways, that's when they're gaining these skills, that's when those skills are supposed to be forming so they can build to the other skills that they gain as they physically age. But if those skills are not there, if they are behind in that super, super young range, then it just sets them so much further behind for everything else. Versus even if it's a very slight delay, if you hit it really hard or hit it right then at the, hey, we're 36 months behind, or even, 6 to 9 months behind, that's still okay. But if you hit it at that point and you start treating it, or you start doing interventions, even within the home, there's things you can do in the home to help these children. If you start working with that situation to build those skills at that point, before they get further and further and further down the line, then it can drastically decrease the amount of delay that they see in a 3, 4, 5-year-old child. And again, even for very small delays, even something that's totally isolated for just one little thing that they're a little bit behind on, crawling, walking, talking, of course, but any of those delays, one little bit can make a big difference. And so that's why it's so critical for either early evaluation, early diagnosis, if it's a situation where there needs to be a diagnosis, and you make those interventions happen. You make it happen very early on while they're quickly acquiring those skills so that they don't get far behind. The other thing is, what if it is autism? A lot of parents are scared to think that route. Or what if it is something serious? What if it's something else? Or what if it's early signs of dyslexia? We don't diagnose dyslexia that young, but you can ask professionals. They can see signs earlier in children than school age for dyslexia. And it's kind of interesting when you talk to somebody that's done this for years, because they see it. They say this might end up being a little bit of a dyslexia issue later on in school. Let's go ahead and do some of these approaches now and get them back up to speed, get them back where they ought to be, and kind of help curb some of that issue that they'll have later on. But if it is a big diagnosis or a big issue, a big disorder going on, why wait? You know, it's not going to change whether the disorder's there or not if you wait 6 months to wrap your head around it. And I was there. I struggled with, I see something I'm not sure about, we're okay, we're going to watch it. And I sat on it for several months, talked to our pediatrician. We both agreed, we'll wait a few months and watch. Waited a few more months. And then I finally was like, no, my mom intuition is going off here. Something's not right. My child could understand. He could communicate with me. He did not have vocal, as we say, language where he was actually speaking words, but he could communicate with me. He created his own sign language, and so we had gestures that we used, and I understood what he meant. But he was significantly delayed on his vocal speech and just in general language. And if I had started therapy sooner, if I had gone to evaluation sooner and not pushed off that evaluation and not pushed back those concerns I was having and what I was seeing and those red flags, as we say, if I had done that sooner, he wouldn't have gotten as far behind. Now, we have hit therapy hard. I am a huge advocate, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. But, you know, when you get that diagnosis, whatever it is, when you see the issue, you jump in feet first. Take a few days if you need to wrap your head around it and make a plan, and you jump in feet first and hit therapy hard while these children are young, and you can help decrease so many other challenges that they may face by working so intensively at such a young age. So, sorry, that was a bunch of rambling and really fast, but reach out if you have other questions or if I can help you. I could talk about autism and delays and intervention and advocacy and all of these things that I have done and have become really passionate about because I see the benefit for them, and I see how many children don't have that, how many children don't have someone to advocate for them or don't have someone who is educated in these areas enough that they see we're a little bit behind in this area, we're not quite where we should be with our peers. And it's okay if you're delayed. A lot of people have this stigma about it in their minds of, oh no, not my baby, or I don't want my baby to be behind. You know, so what if they're a little bit behind? If you hit it when they're a little bit behind, then they won't get very far behind, hopefully. Or if they are far behind, okay, let's make up for lost time. Let's do the best that we can to give them the skills, the tools, as we say, the tools in their tool belt to be able to function with their peers, to be able to participate in activities with their peers. You know, there's so many levels of getting this handled at a young age and getting them the supports that they need right then. Anyway, so sorry, rambling again, but just reach out if you have any concerns or questions or any doubts. I talk to a lot of parents that I'm just not sure. Is this normal? Is this not normal? What do I need to do? What's my first step? And those are all things that I can help you with. Those are all things that I can share information about. I am not a doctor. I am not a therapist. I'm a mom of a child with autism who struggled with several of these delays that I've referred to. But I also have my master's degree, and I studied autism specifically with my master's, and then I went back and got an additional certification as an autism specialist after that. And all of my knowledge is from an educational perspective, but obviously with autism, you have overlap between education and medical. The two go together. It's a medical diagnosis, it's a school diagnosis, and they overlap. And so the education perspective gives me a holistic view of it. And then also having my own child with autism, but coordinating therapies, working with therapists to have them all on the same page, the plan, working in those collaborative environments is huge, 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 huge. And it doesn't always happen if you don't have someone or if you don't educate yourself enough to be that person to make those relationships mesh, to make those plans fit together. So that's something that I really encourage you to do. And again, something I'm obviously very passionate about. But anyway, good luck with everything with you. If anything else comes up that you have questions about or concerns about, if there's something that I can help you with, this is just such a big thing in our society that we see, and we have these supports available. It's just sometimes there's wait lists, sometimes there's stigmas about it or just misconceptions that people have. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you would rather have your child evaluated sooner if there is a problem, whether you want to admit it or not. Ultimately, if there's not a problem, but you have a concern and you evaluate your child, so what if you get them evaluated and everything's great, you know? Wonderful, wonderful. You have found out that they are on track, and watch for these things if you see them, but if not, great, keep moving forward. And then of course, if you do find out that there's something going on, work at it. You know, it's not like they're broken. It's not like there's something terribly, terribly wrong. It's just that they have something that they need to address to help them to further grow. And that's what we would do as an adult. If we struggle with something in our lives, we're going to have to address it one way or another. We could act like it's not there, but it's going to continue to be a problem. And so we've got to give these kiddos the tools that they need to gain these skills. And when they're super young, they don't have the ability to advocate for themselves. They don't have the ability to say, man, I'm really struggling with this. I need some help. So we have to be that for them. So I hope you can be that for them. I hope you can, learn some stuff on your own. But like I said, reach out if I can help you, and just try to move forward. Try to gain as much support for them as you possibly can. That's the big thing that a lot of these kiddos need, is a support system. And anybody can be that. Mom, dad, siblings even, of course, grandparents, teachers, therapists. There's a lot of people that can be support systems for these kiddos. And that's the biggest first step, is say, okay, we're going to move forward. We're going to address this issue. If it becomes a big issue, okay. If it's not a big issue, wonderful. But we are going to do something about it. We're going to find out if it's okay or if it needs to be addressed.